So we're going to start with, we've got Alex Haughin, who's going to share, then Zion's going to do a little interview, and then Steve's going to finish by sharing Stephen Pacey. So, yeah, guys, the microphone is over there, Alex, I think. It's over to you, the handheld one, please. But, guys, give him a round of applause for stepping up.
1, 2. Yeah. I've told Jake that he's got to blur my face after just to make his job difficult. It feels very strange being at the front. I'm usually at the back. So for some people, do I stand back? Some people who already know me, I've sort of grown up in Spring Mount, and for those who don't know me, my name's Alex, as Johnny said. So I wanted to kind of share with you where I've been. Like I said, some people have known me for a lot of years. I went to church when I was a kid, growing up in the youth. That's why I know so many people here. But growing up in the church, I think when I got to sort of 16, around there, I started to have doubts. Although I'd already given my life to the Lord, I started to think, well, is that because I went to the church with my mum and dad, and my mum and dad are Christians? Is that the only reason that I believed in the Lord? So I think during that time, I was kind of going to school. I was bullied quite bad in school. Kids are quite mean, and I had a lot of difficulties as a teenager. So a good friend, someone introduced me to smoking weed, and I thought, at the time when I was young, it seemed that it took the stress off things. I would kind of roll a spliff at night and get stoned and, just forget about everything that had happened that day. And it became more a crutch, and it became a problem in my life. And this is when the distance started between me and going to church. I finished school, went to college, and it was still the same thing. I was still kind of smoking weed and just hanging out with the wrong people, people that were a bad influence on my life. Eventually, I'm trying to summarize a big story here because there's a lot happened. Eventually, I went to university. I was quite talented with music, with sound, and with sort of technology. I was quite gifted in that area, so I got on a music course at Preston. So I thought, that's brilliant, I'm out of Barrow, because at the time, I think when you grow up in Barrow, when you're young anyway, you seem to think that it's rubbish, and that everything's greener on the other side. I've gone a full circle, and now I think it's brilliant, and I love it. So I went to UCLan, and again, I got in with the wrong crowd, because I felt inside that I'd suffered with self-esteem, quite from being young. That's what bullying and all these things do to you. They really make you suffer with your self-esteem. And that release for me was in drugs. And when I went to university, the drugs became harder drugs. I said to myself, I'll never take ecstasy, I'll never take cocaine, I will never do anything like that. But the devil has a way of making things seem that a bit further, you can take it further. So I started at university taking ecstasy, which is pretty, it was quite prevalent in university, and my life just went down and down, even further. The devil always takes things, and it's an illusion. You think that it's brilliant, but it just takes you down and down. So I had to leave university. My mental health was really bad. I was in a very dark place mentally, self-harming and just not taking care of myself. So I left university, came home to Barrow, and again, because of this, mine and my parents' relationship was really strained. My mum and dad were just trying to do everything they could to get me on this straight path, and trying to introduce anything to do that, taking me to different Christian rehab groups, which I would go to and say all the right things, but deep down, this pain that I felt wasn't fixed. So I became homeless in Barrow, and I met someone at this time because I was researching answers, because I think I always wanted that spiritual connection with God, but I just didn't know how to get there. Even though I'd grown up in the church, so I was researching just different things, Hinduism and Buddhism, and really just a young person trying to find the answer for this pain, this question. I got introduced by chance to a doctor who was a Muslim, and this was the first time really that I'd heard anything about Islam. So I think at the time I just went along because it was friends, it was people I talked to, and at the time as well, I think I thought, if you give me more rules, that might help me to stay on the straight and narrow. So Islam to me introduced me to this routine, this way of life that I thought at the time was brilliant, washing and eating and dressing and not talking to this person and doing all these rituals, self-righteousness. That's really what it is deep down. It's self-righteousness. So I had met this Muslim girl, and she said, well, if you don't like Barrow so much, why don't you just move in with me? So I left to Peterborough. In Peterborough, again, I was hanging out with Muslims, but I still hadn't dealt with my drug addiction, so I was still a drug addict. But this time I had changed, and I was, instead of using needles and hard street drugs, I was abusing prescription drugs. So I would forge prescriptions to get prescription medication and abuse that. Again, just not dealt with this pain that I was feeling. That got me into trouble in Peterborough, and the police actually arrested me. I got in trouble for it, and they didn't have anywhere, because if you're homeless, they can't release you to nowhere. So I was released to a bail address in Leicester, where again I got in with the wrong people, and it's just the same sort of repetitive cycle. When I was searching for sort of someone at the time, I think, to take this misery away, so I met Nina. I'm trying to summarise it again, 10 minutes. I met Nina, and we had a connection straight away. She was a Muslim at the time, but I took my studies of Islam to the next level, so I was reading everything, and I mean everything. I was learning Arabic, I was trying to read all the sources, and it disproved 90% of everything that I was told when I first entered. So I thought, well, that can't be the answer, that's obviously not it. I then would give that information to Nina, say, look, read this about, because she was born into an Islamic family, read this about Muhammad, read that, or read this. So both of us had come to this sort of conclusion that Islam was kind of wrong, and I had wanted to go back to church just to try it. When I took Nina to church for the first time in Birmingham, and that was a massive step for her, growing up in an Islamic family. And it was completely different, because church is a family. You are all part of the same body, and unless you've experienced it, it's very difficult to describe to people what church actually is. She latched onto that, and that was, to her, this revelation of what Christ had done. So she had gone on this journey, which actually forced me to go on the journey as well. I started to get sort of clean and sober. I then had given my life to the Lord properly again, and just said everything that had happened. At points I was homeless, I lived in tents. And in 2018, it was one of the coldest winters we ever had, and I nearly froze to death outside. It was awful, and it was this crying out to God, saying, look, I have tried everything my way. I've tried it, and it's led me to the wrong people, the wrong places, dangerous places. I was just fed up. I turned to the Lord and said, I'm yours, do what you want. It's you now. I'd made that commitment. Nina had made the commitment to the Lord as well. And we found out Nina had some troubles with her family over it, because obviously she'd changed her faith in we found out that Nina was pregnant with my son Jacob, and this was sort of the last thing for me to fix my life, because I didn't want to be a father who was a drug addict, an alcoholic, who was homeless, was all these things, and it really helped to secure that, getting clean and changing my life. And it was God washing out all these sort of old emotions, old feelings, old pain, and putting in something new, saying you are worthy, you are, I am who you say I am. It just became truth. And the change from the person who was before, for people who have known me, and then the people who don't, to now, it's like a 180. It's completely different. And God started to reveal things in my life that I never even would have thought of. I just wanted to be clean, but then God said, well, actually, I'm going to make it better than that, and I wanted this, and he would make it better than that. And it was just complete change in my life. For me and Nina, we moved back to Barrow because I wanted to be close to my family, and that just helped even further. Me and Tim became closer, and my mum and dad and everyone. And God has continued to do that work and will continue to do the work in my life. So I don't want to go on for too long, but yeah, thank you very much.
And this young man is still learning, okay? Still growing. He's not got it all right, have you?
No, not yet.
No. And actually, I'm still in my 40s and I've still not got it all right, But actually, how exciting is it that God comes to seek and save the lost? And that God says, you are my son. You are my daughter. And actually, here is an answer to prayer. Because I know, and a lot of people know, it wasn't easy for your family, was it?
Not at all.
Wasn't Tim, was it? No. But how amazing, there's my crying voice, how amazing that this young man can stand here today and say, the difference is God. The difference is God. Yeah.